Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast, the go-to place to gain financial freedom through real estate investing. Here we interview investors, mentors, and entrepreneurs who share their secrets and advice to help you build passive income. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, it's Agostino. Have you been considering getting into multifamily but not sure how? The quality of your coaching determines the future of your business. Avoid expensive mistakes, stop procrastinating, and buy a profitable building with my exclusive one-on-one coaching program. I have a few seats available now. To learn more, visit bulletproofcashflow.com/multifamily coaching. Again, bulletproofcashflow.com/multifamily coaching. In tight real estate markets, finding those off-market deals is a challenge that many commercial buyers say they face. However, like everything else in this business, it all comes down to building relationships and presenting value to brokers, buyers, and vendors that allow you to locate and lock down those off-market multifamily deals. Well, today's guest made his way from NFL player to becoming a real estate investor and broker who's found his niche as a investment property specialist. To do this, he really had to adjust his approach when it came to real estate networking and applying the hustle he learned as a professional athlete to find those off-market deals. And to make this transformation from athlete to multifamily specialist, it took a great deal of grit and determination. Today, as the founder of LiveFree Investments, his group focuses on joint ventures and equity partnerships to help people become financially free with real estate. With all that, I'd like to welcome my good friend, Logan Freeman, to the show. Hey, man, thanks for coming on.
Hey, I really appreciate being here, man. I'm hyped for this interview.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, man. Well, if you like what Logan has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at livefreeinvestments.com. And of course, if you like our content, please don't forget to leave a comment and leave us a review. And finally, if you want to text FREEDOM to 202-410-4202, you'll receive our free ebook, The Bulletproof Guide to Finding a Broker. Okay, Logan, go ahead and tell listeners about how you got your start in real estate.
Absolutely. That was an awesome intro, and I'm really excited to be here, so I appreciate that. You know, my real estate career was started after I got cut from the NFL. And, you know, when I got cut from the NFL is whenever I took a step back and just realized that you didn't have to use my body for, making money. And that was a really hard thing for me to go through, only because I had identified as an athlete my whole life. And so, trying to find a new identity, if anybody's done that or trying to reinvent themselves, there's a lot of trial and error in that process, but you can really find yourself if you continue to be persistent. Like you said, have a grit through it. And so, when I was cut from the NFL, I went back, finished my master's program at the University of Central Missouri, and decided to start basically reading books, personal and professional development, started to listen to podcasts and trying to be a better man, a better human, and just kept reading and educating myself. And, lo and behold, man, I came across that purple book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, wow, there's another opportunity here to actually create wealth. And it's not just through the traditional or the Roth IRA. And so while I did, read a lot of Dave Ramsey growing up, I still believe in obviously saving a certain amount of money and putting it into some diversified funds. I was really excited about being active with my investments and having something solid and real that I was actually investing in. And so I picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was time for me to find a new home in Kansas City. And instead of renting, I decided to go ahead and start buying houses. And so I found a good real estate mentor after really interviewing 10 or 15 different companies to work with here in Kansas City. A guy that obviously, once you hear my story, you'll know that we worked together extensively later in my life. But, a guy that really helped guide me from buying the right areas, spending money on bathrooms and kitchens and flooring, and flipping houses and putting a lot of dollars back into my pocket. And so I got started doing the live-in flips, and I was making 55, 60 grand a year at a job. And I was making that on a flip. And I had a renter, AKA a roommate, paying my mortgage down while I was doing this. I got some construction background. I got a lot of hard work and a lot of sweat equity into these houses, but did that a few times and saw the value of actually getting into real estate. But I realized that I was creating a job for myself. On my nights, on my weekends, everything was taken up. And I really didn't want to do that anymore. And so fast forward about 4 or 5 years, I had a couple jobs. I got fired from my my cushy $100,000, a year job here in the Midwest. Came in one day and boom, my shit was in a box. And they said, look, we got a private equity firm coming on. You're an expensive new salesperson. You're not hitting your numbers. You're gone. And I called my wife that day and I knew I was getting fired. I called her and I said, yep, it happened. So before I got home, she had emailed me the LLC docs to start my own company. And I want people to listen to that. Really, really important message there is whoever you're with, guy, gal, whatever, if they're not on board with what you're trying to accomplish, it's going to be very, very difficult. So whoever you spend the most time with, you need to be open and transparent with them on your goals. And she had started my company for me. That was over 2 years ago. We've been cash flow positive every single year. I started doing brokerage for a $50 million fund here in Kansas City as their head of acquisitions. We basically bought 225 doors for this fund, and we applied that BRRRR methodology, that buy, renovate, rent it out, refinance, and repeat methodology. And the way that I landed into the commercial real estate world was after we finished that order of properties for them, we did a large CoreVest portfolio loan refinance. We had built enough equity in those deals that they pulled all their investors' cash out, and they still were cash flowing over 225 doors in Kansas City. Mind you, those were single family homes. And I sat down with those sponsors and I said, hey guys, I know that you probably are doing well for yourself, but surely you don't have $50 million to go do this, right? And they said, no, we syndicated all this equity. And I didn't even know what that word meant. So I, again, started educating myself and started learning about real estate syndication, flying around the country, going to events, reading books, hiring mentors, and started LiveFree Investments and started raising equity for my investor group that I was putting together and moved my license as a broker over to the commercial real estate side. And now I partner with the principals there on some transactions. I do some myself, and I have another group here that we do projects together. And I also do a lot of brokerage for multifamily on the 1031 exchange side of things. And also all of my investors and clients are out of state. So I don't work with anybody that's here. So I have a whole team from property managers to lenders to insurance to attorneys, whatever you need. I open my book up and help my out-of-state clients not only, invest passively, but also purchase real estate actively here in Kansas City.
So much to unpack there. The beginning about having to reinvent yourself. I think that there's so many people out there, even in the audience, that they're at that spot. I know I was. That sounds like a lot like my story. Parallels it to a high degree. You walk into work one day and there's the box.
Yep. We talked about that. Yeah.
Yep. Put your crap in the box. You're done. You're get out. And you know what, man? It is scary at first. It really is. And I'm not suggesting everybody go out and get fired from their job, but it forced you to take action.
It did.
Right. And that's what it took. And I think, not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're all the better for it.
Absolutely. I'm a really stubborn guy, and we were getting married at that time. And so I thought I needed that job that was going to provide that stable income. And so I knew I needed to leave. It wasn't a right fit. I was making myself stay. And I think at the end of the day, the big man upstairs said, hey, you've lasted long enough. I'm kicking you out the front door. And it was the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Yeah. And for all those people out there, it's like same thing that you just said. For me to hold down a job, it took a lot.
Yep.
I've been an entrepreneur my whole life.
Exactly.
And for you as an athlete, I guess even as an athlete, as an NFL athlete, you are your own brand, so to speak, right? You have your own individual contract. And I'm not an NFL specialist, but as I understand it, you're just a contract employee, basically, right? You're your own business.
100%.
Yeah, in a way, they're also entrepreneurs. So yeah, it's a very different model. So fast forwarding to today now. So you have this group, you built up this group, and you only work with out-of-state buyers. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you find these assets today. Like how do you locate these properties? I'm assuming many of your out-of-state clients are always calling you, they're bugging you, saying, hey man, I need some out-of-state deal flow here. What do you got for me? So how are you finding those sorts of assets today?
So a few ways. The first thing I will say is that, I have a pretty rigorous process that I put my buyers through. And what I mean by that is, when I came to my broker 12 months ago and said, hey, I'm going to represent buyers in the marketplace and be a commercial real estate buyer's agent, she was like, well, good luck. She kind of said, hey, that's kind of crazy. And nobody really does that. But what I did know was that, when you're buying a 5, 10, $15 million property and you're being unrepresented, you might have a lawyer, but if you're unrepresented from a buyer's agent with boots on the ground, there's something that's going to be missed there. And those listing agents, they're always wanting properties to be, or a buyer to be unrepresented for a reason. It's like, hey, fool me once, shame on me, but fool me twice, shame on me again, right? So you really need to be focused on having boots on the ground and having a good representation. And so when I went through representing that fund and other out-of-state investors, I knew that there was a need in the marketplace for people to have good representation and to be able to build a team really quickly. And so when I transferred that into the commercial real estate world, I realized it was magnified. And a lot of these folks that wanted to buy commercial real estate, they maybe have never done it before. They didn't have property managers. They maybe never been to Kansas City. And there was a lot of tire kickers out there. So I had to create a process. And I have a pretty detailed process that I take buyers through, that I start looking at their track record and I start looking at what they've done in the past. If they've not done anything, that's okay. But I do need to know that they can actually purchase the real estate and they'll qualify for a loan, all these different things. So I have this process of looking at a past project that we've done. So we've got appraisals for other projects that have been completed. We've got pro formas and projections and T12s from projects that have been completed. And we have financing that has been completed for these past projects. So the first step in the process is, let me get to know who you are. I have an acronym for real estate. It's the ideal investment. It can provide you income, depreciation, equity buildup, appreciation, and leverage. And with that being said, which one is most important to you? And when I start having these conversations, I've had over 500 this year with out-of-state clients, probably more. I just stopped tracking them. It was exhausting to try to keep up with all the stuff. And I could talk about that too. But, I started hearing certain things, and I could say, just because multifamily is the only thing that's really out there being marketed, and the podcast circuit and all these books are around multifamily, there's other asset classes that if you can figure out, there is some yield there, and there's a lot of yield there in some of those opportunities. So if I hear somebody that says, hey, I need income, hey, great. Why don't we go get you a 10 or 12-year lease that's a 9 cap on a triple net lease deal that you're not going to have to manage, and it's going to provide you 14% day one. How would that sound? Well, that sounds great, Logan. Let's go find that. So I start hearing these things after this process, and then I walk them through an actual deal that's been completed in that asset class. It might be multifamily, it might be office, it might be commercial triple net lease, it might be retail, it might be mixed use, it might be self-storage. And we walk through a deal that I have done in that asset class. And then we start really tailoring that into, okay, now I need you to talk to property managers. Now I need you to talk to lenders, attorneys. I want you to feel like your team is put in place. So when that deal does come that I find, and they go like this, like in a week, that we can move fast and you're not scrambling to put all the other pieces to the puzzle together. And so by the end of the time that I take them through this big, long process, I know exactly what type of property that they're going to be looking for. And that's going to fit their criteria and they're going to be happy with. I always say it looks like a blank canvas when we first start. And at the end of it, there's a picture. And that picture starts to become clearer every single step of the process. And by the time that I see the picture and they see the picture, we can then go identify the right property. And so if it's a commercial triple net lease property, I will call one of the 5 property management companies that manage all of the stuff in the city. And I'll say, hey, which one of your sellers is interested in selling? And I don't want listed stuff. And if it is listed, that's fine. But give me the real story behind it. Let me take you to lunch. So I have relationships with all the selling brokers in the city as well. I'll do the same thing with that. Hey, who's interested in selling something, but maybe won't list it? Here's 5 transactions we've closed in the last 3 months. And my buyer will pay my fee if you'll allow me to get a look at some of your pocket listings. So I call property management companies. I call sellers themselves. If I actually have a property list, I call other listing brokers that are movers and shakers in the city, and I find a way to cooperate or co-broker with them. And then I'm at all these different meetups and going to these networking events all the time. And it's exhausting, but at the end of the day, You don't do the volume that I do by just sitting behind a computer desk all the time and making phone calls. You have to get out there and start doing things. It's not a science. It's definitely an art to find properties. But the biggest question I have to answer first is, one, are you qualified? Two, what is it that you're actually looking for? And three, where can we find that? If it's yield, great. Where can we find that? Or if it's tax depreciation, great. Where do we find that in Kansas City? And then I start honing in on the location and the property type as well. So that's kind of a little bit of a high level overview of how I go about working with buyers here in Kansas City.
Wow, a lot of good stuff there. So there's many people that do the whole email blast when they're looking for assets. Some of them send out letters. Some of them make phone calls. Those are all strategies. They could work, I guess. But I think when you're talking the assets you're talking about, though, big assets, it's a different game. And in actuality, that's how I find my assets. I deal with brokers like you, and that's how I find them. That's how I get all my deals at this point, actually.
Yeah. That's our jobs.
Yeah. I mean, if you find a good broker, and just like you said, if you as a buyer are credible and you have your team in place, and when talking to a guy like you're going to say, okay, great, who's your property manager? And maybe I might say, oh, I have a local guy. He's been in the business for 30 years. He's currently managing my assets, or maybe he's not, but I already have a guy lined up, and here's who he is. You can give him a call, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And again, you sound credible. That's ultimately what it is. And then, of course, can you perform? Which is super important, because for many buyers that are looking for multifamily, I'm not going to say that they get to walk away scot-free, but to a broker that's going to go out and try to find deals, and then if you bring someone to the table that is a schmuck or can't perform, you look foolish too, right? Because you're introducing them to your network.
Right, exactly. Yeah. A lot of people kind of have a little bit of the paralysis by analysis, like, well, I can't get a hold of any brokers, and I can't get anybody to call me back, and all of this. And I have a lot of people that call me and want to talk to me a lot of the time. Here's my one tip: take the time, get on LoopNet, find a listing that I've got, and download the T12, the offering memorandum. Tell me why it will or would not work for you, and take the time to screen record your screen while you're going through your underwriting and send that to me. 3 minutes. 3 minutes is all it takes. If you start doing that to other brokers and movers and shakers in the city that have listings, they're going to start taking you seriously, because they're going to be able to hear you talk about, hey, here's the points of why this works for me, why it doesn't work for me. Hey, I don't know about the location as much. I need these questions answered. And if you can intelligently speak to IRR and cash on cash, and making the correct assumptions on your pro formas, and walking the brokers through that, and recording a quick video that they can watch on their phone, 3 minutes long, and sending it, that is enough to catch somebody's attention. So that's my one tip today to get a broker's attention is put a quick video together of your pro forma and your underwriting, send it to them, and tell them why it would or would not work, and watch the responses come in.
Wow, that is actually beautiful right there. One of the things that many new people ask me is, I don't have any money. What do I do? That's actually beautiful right there. If you are a credible person that can underwrite a deal, send it to a broker, get their attention. Maybe that broker will send you something, and then you come to a syndicator like you or me and say, hey, look, I have a deal, Agostino. Can you help me out with this thing? And
Exactly.
that's what we do, right? That's what we do. And for those of you guys out there that want to actually learn how to do that kind of stuff, we actually have coaching around underwriting as well, to help those people learn how to underwrite. Because there's some people that just don't know how to do it. They just don't know how, but we walk through everything from how to select a property to why it works, why it doesn't work, what the financials look like. Maybe the financials look a little tricky, like it has like a 15% expense ratio. That's highly suspect.
Right. Yeah.
Things like that.
Very suspect.
Yep. Now, you mentioned networking is a really big part of it, and you mentioned meetups, right? Tell me a little bit about the meetups and some of the other places that you go to really just network with other people. Are you targeting a certain demographic? Are you looking for investors, looking for other brokers? Like, what exactly are you looking for?
I'm not looking for investors, not looking for brokers. I'm looking to be seen. And I'm looking for my brand to be out there talking with the movers and shakers in the city. So when somebody says, hey man, I got this property, I don't know what to do with it, I need to sell it, but we've got this lien on it and we need somebody to figure out these details on that. Hey, I'm pretty sure Logan might be able to help you out, and he probably has a buyer that would be interested in talking with you. So I'm going to these events to be seen, talking with the movers and the shakers. If anything, the Pareto's principle of 80-20 is more prevalent in commercial real estate than almost any other industry, I would think, here in Kansas City, at least. That's how it is here. 20% of the people are doing 80% of the transactions. And I also would say you need to stop consuming meetups and become a member or an organizer of a meetup. So I started my own meetup here in Kansas City. So that wasn't to necessarily find local investors or anything like that. It was to be seen as the local expert by people outside of the city. So the meetups and things that I go to might not necessarily be commercial real estate focused. It would be more or less just trying to get around people who are interested in buying property, interested in selling property, and just to have people know that I'm active in the marketplace. That's the most important thing for me.
You know what though? And even as a secondary point, if they don't want to say, take on the responsibility of setting up a meetup, become a co-organizer. Maybe, you know what, you're going to be traveling that week or whatever.
Yep.
And hey, Logan, I can help your event. I can sit in for you. And that'd be great too, right? I mean, make sure you have something to offer. Yeah. But that's a great way to actually help someone who already has those meetups already created, that platform already created. That's a beautiful way to do it. Beautiful way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust me, there's no organizer out there that's going to turn help away. I'll tell you that much right now.
That's right. Well, we do our live events here as well. And yeah, there's times when I need help too, so you never know.
100%.
Yeah. And being a co-organizer is a great way to cover that gap. Absolutely. Absolutely. So now when you are finding investors, do you have any other tips about how to actually get your hands on them? Like I know that sometimes meetups are not the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Meetups typically have people that are just starting out, that kind of thing, and that's okay. How do you currently find those sorts of people that may want to actually throw down on a deal?
Well, first things first is if you're trying to become a capital raiser or get into a deal without all of your own money, which is most of us, you need to tell people what you do. And you need to tell them in a way that they understand in a clear, concise, and compelling way, right? So you need about 5 or 10-second line that you can tell somebody, right? Logan Freeman, what do you do? I provide safe and lucrative returns to my real estate investors. That's it. And that gives enough interest for people, and just say something along that lines, right? And so that's the first thing. Tell people what you do. So that would be number one. Number two is you got to have a presence online. And that's all there is to it. You have to have a presence online. So I have spent the last 18 months trying to build the brand online, getting the message out there, and just showing up every single day. I think in the real estate sector, you have to be really careful that, people might feel like this is a sector that, you have that slicked back hair oil salesman that can kind of take your money and then disappear. And so we have to overcome that a little bit in the real estate world because, it is the greatest investment in the world. But at the same time, you have to create trust really quickly. And so if you can show for the last 2 years that you've been doing deals, you've been focused on putting out content to people, and you've had an online presence for 2 years, that's going to make somebody feel really good about investing $100,000, $200,000 with you, because they are going to say, okay, well, he's been doing it for 2 years. His partner's been doing it for 15 years, and he showed up to content every single day. They're going to feel like they know who you are. If you kind of pop on social media, hey, closed the deal, and then you're gone for 8 months. Hey, closed another deal, and then you're gone for another 8 months. That sporadic communication, they're going to feel the same way about, okay, well, what happens after we close the deal? When's the next time I'm going to hear from him? 8 months from now? So one thing that I've been really focused on is digital marketing and social media, and how to utilize it in a way that allows me to scale my time and my effort. And the only way I can do that is I'm putting systems around the whole process that I described to you earlier and talking through with buyers or investors, and I'm bringing them along a journey. So instead of having to spend 15 hours with somebody before they invest or buy something, I'm going to have different steps of this journey that they can go along where they're going to meet my property managers. They're going to meet my lenders. They're going to meet my attorneys. I'm going to walk them through an underwriting exercise, but I'm not going to have to physically be on the phone doing that with them. And they're going to be able to do that via some sort of portal or some sort of video, email communication. So I can help get these people to the place they need to be in the comfort level to build that trust. My last investment that we raised on, 3 of the investors were new. And they all said, Logan, I felt like I knew you before we had our first call. That's the golden nugget right there. You have to be known before you have that first call, because if you have to build rapport, trust, and a relationship for the first 5 calls to the point where you need to be with them, the deal is going to be closed or you're going to lose the deal. So you need to be doing that at all times. And people want to integrate you into their own time frame. So when you get to be as busy as myself or Agostino, how busy you are, you can't always just pick up the phone and call somebody. My phone's ringing 6 times by the time we've been on this call. And if you don't have my link to schedule with me, just calling me, probably not going to get me. And that's just the way that it is. But at the same time, I have to stay focused on making sure that, I'm speaking to and allowing people to integrate myself into the time frames that works with them. And the only way that I can do that is to be online, digitally, and bringing them through this journey at all times, but not actually having to be there physically. And that's been a hard thing for me to do because I love talking to people so much. But at the same time, I've realized that I can really, really expand my outreach and my impact, not only with my business, but with the community if I can do these things. So I'm testing a few different things out with this whole automation and putting some systems and processes in place. And I'm excited to get that up and going for 2020.
Awesome. And that's a lot of great stuff in there, because not only does what you just said apply to just investors, but it also applies to brokers as well. If you're going to call someone and you're an unknown, that broker doesn't know who you are, never heard your name, first thing they're going to do is probably look at Facebook. they're going to look at you, right?
Exactly. Yep.
But if your Facebook page is nice and clean, there's no pictures of you holding up a beer or wearing camo or whatever, or look like a slob, then chances are you might get a call back.
Exactly.
But I think that in itself is cleaning up your social media, putting out some content, showing up to the events, and actually, just like you said, having a regular interaction about your passion in life, which hopefully is real estate. And sometimes it's as simple as just showing up online. There's a few guys I know that they've built quite a bit of success creating a platform. They never actually bought a deal. They just are really good at connecting with other people and sharing the information and they're learning their journey, like you just pointed out, with the world. And for some people, it resonates with them, and it helps build the credibility. You're leveraging the credibility of the people you're talking to. That's ultimately what it is. That's huge.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. And that's something that anybody can start doing right now. That is probably one of the biggest gold nuggets from this whole conversation, is that for the people out there that want to know how do you get started, just fix that. Yeah. That's a good starting point. Fix your social.
Yeah. How is your resume online look? What does it look like? A piece of paper nobody looks at anymore. LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. They're going to be all over that with a quick Google search. So what happens when you Google your name? That's a great tip. And if there's stuff that you wouldn't want your grandma to see, you should probably get it off social media. And if you can't get it off social media, you should call somebody who can get it off the internet for you. Because to be taken seriously when you're doing 100+ unit deals, that's the first thing people do. I'll give a case in point. I was negotiating a 68 unit apartment complex right around $4.6 million today. This buyer is extremely credible. He's got a 1031 exchange, has already been closed. The dollars, over $985,000, are in the bank account, ready for the down payment. And the seller still requested, and he has a resume. And by the way, he's a multi-$100 million tech company in California. And he has a resume of of all these real estate projects that he has done. And we presented that with a debt term sheet that was already approved. And the seller still asked for a phone call to talk with him individually this morning. And we're going to close that deal and get under contract today. But that's how serious that is. If you really want to get into being a player and the hitter in your market, you have to take yourself and your brand extremely serious, because a lot of these sellers, like it or not, they are old school. They are 60 years old, and they don't want to get under contract with somebody that can't close the deal.
Yeah. And you know what, though, that brings about another point too, is that I think a byproduct of studying and putting material together and putting it out online and cleaning up the resume and all that is also learning the lingo. So when you do get on the phone call with someone, you sound like you know what you're doing, right? If you sound foolish, you don't sound like you're credible, you're fumbling through your words, or you're saying things that don't make any sense, then we'll sell you the deals. Because for this guy, if he does not know the lingo, he can have all the resume in the world. That guy won't sell to him.
Exactly.
That's exactly what happens in the seller's market.
100%.
Yeah. Let's go back to the very, very beginning when you said about making that shift to this business, and it all required mindset. Tell me a little bit about some of that mindset shift that you had to do. Like, what sort of things did you have to face and realize in yourself that they really had to make this change? Tell us a little bit about that really quick.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you have to have a belief in a higher power, or a really strong belief in yourself, because the going is going to get tough. And when it does, what do you fall back on? Do you fall back on bad habits, or do you fall back on a strong foundation that you can lean into and understand and feel that pressure and adversity and pain and fear and anxiety, and you can still continue to press forward? And when everybody around you is telling you, hey man, that's crazy, what are you doing, that's not smart, you need to get a job, you need to be safe, and you hear that from people that you respect, well, first off, maybe you should get some new friends, but second off, that's going to happen. And when it does, what are you going to do? When you look inside yourself, are you going to have a belief in yourself, or are you going to have a belief in a higher power that allows you to continue to put one foot in front of the other to continue to move forward? We didn't touch on this, but that whole time when I got cut from the NFL, I also lost my father to drugs and alcohol. And all of this stuff happened all at once. And I'll tell you what, if there's anything that taught me, is that going through that process and just watching how fickle life actually is, it allowed me to focus not only on what was most important to myself, but it also allowed me to say, hey, you can blink and this whole thing can be gone. And so you should really make sure that you think about the choices that you are making. And when I went through that, I had to really do some soul searching about who I wanted to be and what was the foundation that I wanted to lay on or stand on. And honestly, losing a deal, losing a job, losing anything is not really scary to me anymore. What's the most scary thing to me is probably losing my beautiful wife and my 9-month-old daughter. But I have no reason to think that would ever happen if I continue to make good choices. So I would say that going through being cut from the NFL, being cut from a job, losing my father, all of these things, man, they gave me a foundation that was strong enough to stand on and to lean into when the going gets tough. And it allows me to stay very objective through all of this, because I've seen how impactful it is when you make choices that are not life fulfilling, but are soul sucking. And unfortunately, once you're gone, you're gone. You can't come back. So losing a job or losing a deal or anything like that, I have a new objective perspective that a lot of people are like, man, you're not really worried about the next thing, are you? I was like, no, because I know that I'm one of the best in the industry with what I'm doing. And I also know that I can make it when everything else seems to be falling around next to me, because I have a really strong foundation and a belief, not only in a higher power, but I have a really strong belief in myself too.
Yeah. And the thing is that for many guys out there, and you've heard me say it before in other podcasts, is that there's only one shot, and you got to go big. You got to do the best you possibly can. And yeah, hopefully it's more than just suffering at a 40-hour a week job that you hate, and That's absolutely terrible. We get one shot. We only get one shot. That's it.
Exactly.
Got to make it count.
One shot, man.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Logan, you can reach him via his website at livefreeinvestments.com. Hope you got inspired. Hope you got a lot of good insight on how to find your next deal. Thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I was hyped for this episode. I hope people can get something out of it. And man, I'm just excited to continue to follow you along your journey and listening to these episodes. They always bring me up.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. For more free podcasts, articles, videos, and resources, go to www.bulletproofcashflow.com.